Hello everyone, welcome to my first tutorial of this mini YouTube series where I will be exploring Python uh, for beginners, and by the end of this YouTube series hopefully we'll be having a we'll be able to grasp all the fundamentals of Python in its entirety. Okay, and as the series will progress it will become more and more advanced, however still enough for you to be able to handle. So the first thing we're going to want to do in Python is make sure that Python is installed inside of our computer. In order for the code to run, your computer needs some extra drivers so that it can be able to interpret Python code and execute it. To do this, head over to python.org and go into downloads. So you will see several different operating systems. So for example, this website already knows that I'm using macOS, and just click download. Okay, I'm not going to download it, but what it does is it runs into an installation manager, and when installing, there's no need to click anything extra except when it says add to path. Be sure to check that box, otherwise it will be difficult for you. Okay, now once you're done that, what you're going to want to do is open up your terminal. Okay. And you're going to want to check to see if everything is working correctly. So just go into your terminal and type in Python. Let me just zoom that in. Yeah, type in Python. Okay, and now you're just going to want to click enter. Yeah, so as you can see, currently it works because I don't see any errors. It does show a warning that Python 2.7 is not recommended, which I also do not recommend. And we are using Python 3, by the way. Let's just terminate this window. Now, let's head over to our editor. So Python gives you an editor called IDLE, all right, and it just looks like this, all right, but we're not going to use this. We're going to use Visual Studio Code, but you can use that editor too if you like. Okay, so once we're in our editor, as you can see, there's what you're going to want to do is make a file called test.py, or you can call it whatever you want, but make sure there's no spaces and there's a .py extension. Okay, now we can start our code. The first thing we will be exploring are data types. Data types are what help data types are the most basic parts of programming. With different data types, code works together to execute certain tasks. The most basic data types that we will be using in this video and in future tutorials are integers, strings, floats, and booleans. So I'm going to explain each of them one by one. First of all, I'm going to start off with booleans. Booleans are the most basic data type there is. So a boolean is a simple true or false. Okay? So if you notice, Boolean also exists in hardware and is very similar to binary because it's either true, it's either one thing or another. Yes or no. True or false. Okay? So for an example, let's suppose if my car is blue, or I want to check to see is the car blue. So my car, let's suppose if it's not blue, it's red. I will just simply write false. Okay? Now I can print out this value into my terminal so that I can view it as a person. Okay, so I'm just going to write that, and I'm just going to right click and go all the way down to run Python file in terminal. And as you can see, I get a false because that's the value of car blue. I can also change the values of the booleans, like I can change it from false to true, but that's all I can do. So I can go like car blue is equal to true, and I can print that out once again, and car blue. Okay. And now let's just try and run that. So as you can see, I first get false, then I get true. Okay. The usage of Boolean is also existent in if-else statements that we will be getting to within this tutorial sooner. The next thing we will be exploring are called lists. Strings, sorry, I meant strings. Strings are the only data type that can hold alphanumerical values, so like ABC and 1, 2, 3 together. And just like Booleans, they can change in value and they can also change in length. For an example, so this is how to make a string. You just have to write 2 quotation marks, double quoted or single quoted, that's your choice. And then you type in what you want. So car blue could be the car is not blue. And let's just print that out. Car blue. And let's just run this. So as you can see, I have gotten the car is not blue. Okay. And similarly, I can also check. I can also add 2 strings together. So for an example, it says the car is blue. Okay. Now let's suppose if I can add another string to it. So I can say the car is not blue. The car is red. Okay. Now let's just print this out. So as you can see, we get the car is not blue, and then we get the second string, the car is red. I can also multiply strings together. So I can go like the car is not blue and times that by 3. So now all that's going to happen is that it's going to print out the car is not blue 3 times. Watch and see. Yeah, the car is not blue, the car is not blue, the car is not blue. Okay? The next thing we will be exploring are called integers. So for this, I'm just going to remove all of this. Okay? So integers are, and it's kind of, if you don't know what integers are, what are you doing? Integers are basically just whole numbers, but also the number 0. Okay? And an integer can be anything from like, I don't know, 1, 500, 5,000, -200. Okay? And with my integers, I can do all bedmass operations. So suppose if my age is 15, okay? Now I'm just gonna print that out, print out my age. Now I can take the age and I can add 5 years, okay? All right, so that's addition, okay? Then what I can do is I can take my age and my age can be equal to my age times 5. I can also take my age and then I can set my age to the power of 2, so that's exponents. And I can also just print out my age. And then I can also just take my age and I can divide that by 2. All right, now let's just run this out. Yeah, and I just forgot to print that. So if I just clear that and run. So yeah, as you can see, I'm using, as you can see, all these operations work. If you notice here that there is a decimal, all right, so that's actually a very interesting thing. Now you might be wondering, so if there's a decimal, but it's an int, how would that work? Wouldn't it just throw an error? What happens is that integers can work with decimals, This is because they're both numerical values. In Python, decimal values do not exist. Instead, they are called floats. So a float will look like this. So a float is simply just a regular, like, let's suppose if I could call it an age, and it's 15.5. All right, and if I were to just print out my age, I get 15.5. So they're very similar to integers is what I'm trying to say. You can add to an integer with a float as well. Okay, but for this video, I'm not going to jump too deep into floats. That's because they're not very important per se. All right, the next thing we will be exploring is called if-else statements. So when you write code, you sometimes want certain code to execute if a certain condition is met. For example, let's suppose if I want to withdraw $100 from the bank, I need to have more than $100. If statements didn't exist, then I could just make the entire bank go bankrupt. So if statements only run when a certain condition is true. For example, my money, let's suppose if the money I have in my bank account is $5,000. Now then, so if the money is greater than $100, print you can withdraw. Where's that dollar sign? $100. Otherwise, print you cannot withdraw. Okay, so if I were to run this, first what happens is that it takes the money and then checks to see if the statement is true. So since money is greater than 100, it will run that. So as you can see, if statements use Booleans, as I discussed earlier. As a result, this is called Boolean logic, where if statements and else if statements that I'm going to get to in a moment only run when conditions are true. So as you can see, it says you can withdraw $100. Now, else if statements are, so let's just specify $50, right? Let's suppose if if I want to have other cases that if they are true, you can run those instead, right? So like if the money isn't $100, but let's suppose if it's more than $50, well, why don't we just let them withdraw $50? So to make an elif statement, we will go elif money is greater than $50. Print you can only withdraw $50. All right, now if we were to just run that, boom, you can only withdraw $50. So as you can see in this tutorial, we have went over how to install Python, how to the different data types, and how to implement if statements, as well as printing things out into the terminal. Next tutorial will involve for loops and while loops. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, there's a text tutorial down in the description in case if you want to read that and all the code that I've used. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.